Hey everyone, welcome to week 69. Today is Monday, day one, which means new theme, new week. And the theme for this week is going to be study. By the way, thank you for all the nice comments regarding my wrist and hand. They're perfectly fine now. All we needed was rest, so we'll see how we do today. Okay, let's get started. This is Monday. This is day one. This is going to be our new week, which we're going to call... Actually, before I tell you what we're going to call this new week, let me say thank you to everyone that wrote really nice things about my wrist and hand getting better. They are better. They're a lot better. Who knew it? If you rest your hand and you try not to work as hard, it does get better. So it is sad to know that because I have to be honest, this isn't work for me. This is something that I truly enjoy. And the days that I can't do anything that has to do with drawing or painting, I don't know. My body kind of itches. My mind misses it. My day-to-day seems off. I mean, I have this project to blame for that, I guess. It's become such an integral part of my life. I know that we said from the beginning that we were going to do 2 years. It's kind of crazy how I do have to say, okay, this was going to be 2 years. Let's make it 2 years and that's done. I think that's good, but a part of me is also horrified that I'm not going to have this rhythm that I've already acquired and that it's going to feel weird. I don't know. I'm kind of, scared that I'm going to miss this really, really badly. That this is already changing my perception of how painting really has an effect on my life. It's not just about my life dedicated to painting, but it's also about how painting reshapes my life. And I think that that's when an amazing thing happens, where this can't be really categorized as a hobby or something that I do professionally. Not really. It almost goes beyond it. It just tangles itself, with life. And it does it with such strength that I don't know if I can tear them apart. I don't know if I can say, okay, this was our painted lives, this was a project, and now we have to go back to my professional painting. Now I have to go back to doing big paintings that I'm going to sell at galleries. At what price point? I have no idea. Because I painted myself into a corner because I'm an idiot. So now if I do a huge painting, if I do an 80 by 60 inch painting, it's got to be $250 because everything above $250 for me now sounds really expensive. And when I see paintings that are worth thousands of dollars, I'm totally fine with that. I don't speak about anyone else's process. I don't speak about anyone else's price points. In many ways, this has nothing to do with anybody else but, my own path. And it's been kind of cool to see how this price point has distorted in a very good way how I see the art market. And because that value kind of symbolizes a very specific niche of the art market that usually falls upon the shoulders of young artists that can't sell stuff for a ton of money, you're never going to be able to be a 22, 23-year-old artist selling for tens of thousands of dollars. That's very improbable, highly improbable. I'm sure that there are extraordinary cases, but that's not how the market usually behaves. So because we've been looking at price points that are coherent with what we believe with our work, it's been so amazing. It's opened up our eyes to so many young artists' work that it's incredible. We have the company now of over 100 pieces of art that we love. We enjoy so much looking at them. They are part of our everyday lives. And I have to say that wouldn't have been possible if we hadn't taken a stance and if we hadn't believed in a different idea for a market. So yeah, I'm super scared about what is to come. I guess that's super exciting. Best case scenario. If I have to be honest, right now, best case scenario, I think both Danny and myself would love to still be actively part of a community. I think without the socializing aspect of this whole project, there would just be work. It would just be, day after day after day, painting after painting after painting, voiceover, video, etc. But I think because we've felt the human beings that are at the other side of this video and how, you guys consider us company. And we obviously consider you essential to all of this. It feels different. This whole project feels special. And I don't know, ideally, we don't have to give that up. We can find a way to try and make all of these things work for all of us. That would be dream scenario, pie in the sky for us. But we'll see. We'll see. That's in the future. We're still 6 months away from that. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. We have some ideas, but we want to see what happens in these 6 months. And we'll keep you guys updated. You know that I am annoyingly honest and conversational. So you guys will know exactly what our next steps are going to be when we make that decision. So why are we speaking about this? Why are we speaking about how this process, this project has impacted my painting practice? Because I noticed something creeping up on me. I have to say, it hasn't been something that I've been highly conscious of, but instead it's been something that has been right there. I can kind of see it in the corner of my eye. You guys have heard me say how I love the study part of painting. How if we take that statement literally, I gravitate towards paintings that are studies. They are the places where the artist would try and solve problems before trying to tackle what usually was a bigger, more complex painting. In the study, you would try to solve things in a very natural, very simple manner. That's where all your answers were. Big painting, it was just about execution. But where the idea gestated, where you wanted to gain some sense of clarity, that all happens in a very loose sketch or in a color sketch or in a study. I absolutely adore those things, from the very gestural, simple Rubens to the gorgeous Leyendecker studies that I still believe that are some of the most beautiful paintings that exist. Those Leyendecker studies just belong to any museum in this world. So I started noticing that I'm kind of yearning for that idea of studying something. And maybe it has to do with the highest respect that I have of Kim Jung-gi and how to reach the level that he's reached with his work, you have to study things. You have to spend thousands of hours trying to understand those things, trying to unravel that puzzle that is that specific subject matter. How does form turn in space in that particular subject matter? Does it have a structure? Is it important to understand that structure? How does it travel through space? Without nominating things, without saying what those things are, you could kind of understand how dedicating a specific amount of time and having the space to study is just a wonderful feeling. I mean, what Kim Jung-gi has is the ability to study but also to very quickly understand how things work. And then he not only understands how things work, he's able to translate his understanding into drawing. So there's a couple of steps there that he's doing that seem simple, but not really. They're not simple at all. So we have the study part, we have the understanding part, and then we have the translating part. And we translate it into, in my case, this week is going to be painting. In his case, is almost always drawing. So I wanted to see if throughout this week, I'm not going to be able to do those 3 steps. In a week, I'm not going to be able to say, I can study it, I can understand it, and then I can translate it in a very solid manner through paint. I don't think I can do that. It for sure would take me a lot more time than just a week. But what we can do for this week is to concentrate in the area of study. And that's going to be our title for this week. We're going to call it Study. We are going to essentially end up doing studies. And hopefully, in my mind, what I want to do is that they're all going to try to answer to some specific objective that we set for ourselves at the beginning. But in the end, I think that they're all going to reach the same place. They can all be understood as studies. I'm sure they're going to configure paintings and paintings of different natures, maybe. But their essence is going to be driven by study. At their core is a willingness to try to understand something. So I was really, really pumped for this week. And I told myself, okay, but what is my subject matter now? Because you could spend the rest of your life thinking, what should I study? Because the whole universe is out there. You could pick absolutely anything that is part of this universe, is part of our lives, and it is worth studying. It would be a fascinating subject matter. For some reason, and I'm going to be super honest here because I don't know if I have a very specific reason for doing this, I don't usually paint animals that much. I've painted our family dog, which is Tyson, a couple of times, and that's super awesome. And I guess I did some paintings of some animals at some point, but for the longest time, I don't think I've really tackled painting animals. That sounds kind of absurd, right? To try and paint a specific subject matter, because we don't have enough time in infinite lifetimes to try and paint everything that's out there. So dedicating our time to painting very specific things is not the way in which we're going to be able to paint those things. I've always said this, but if we have very acute observational skills, we can pretty much paint anything. But I guess it's super nice to just dedicate a space of time to say, you know what, I'm going to hone in my attention on, and this week it's going to be all about elephants, specifically like African elephants. That's what I'm going to study throughout this week. Now, I gave myself a couple of guidelines. I told myself I'm not going to look at stuff that I know I really love. For example, the elephants in the Robin Hood Disney animated movie. I'm not going to look at those elephant guards because they are amazing. They're already in my brain. I mean, I'm not capable of drawing them from my head, but they are ingrained in my brain. Also, I would say the goalkeeper from the football match in Bedknobs and Broomsticks. I used to love that movie. That football game has to be one of the coolest things ever animated. I grew up watching that movie. I think we rented it like 100 times. But I absolutely adored that moment of the movie. So I remember that elephant. That elephant for me is also etched in my brain. And last but not least, and I'm sure a lot of you guys will know who I'm talking about even before I say this, Heinrich Kaleigh is just out of this world. And his animated, humanized elephants are just, they're the best. You can't do anything better than that. And sadly, because I'm going to say sadly, those are also etched in my brain. I'm going to ask Danny to show you pictures of these, but just know that I'm not going to look at any of these during the week. I am afraid that if I do, then the wonderful discoveries that these amazing artists did before me are going to end up traveling into my painting and becoming part of that vocabulary. But I want to see if I can do I'm not going to say heavy lifting, but if I can do the homework. So again, I'm not going to look at all these amazing artists. I'm also going to avoid looking at structure. So for example, I'm not going to try to see the bone structure of the elephant or the muscle groups. I'm not going to go about it that way. I do have knowledge about the human body. I'm not great at anatomy, but I think I know enough about anatomy to be comfortable in doing some very superficial comparative anatomy with the elephants. So I'm going to really just try to observe and try to figure things out on my own. I think that that's super exciting. I think that when we make discoveries by ourselves, they feel deeper and they feel like they can become more useful than if you just look at how other people solved this same problem. In the end, it's all information, and the level of quality that you can find in those artists' endeavors is incredible. The wealth of information there is absolutely amazing. It kind of sounds dumb and ineffective because essentially what I'm trying to do is kind of rediscover the wheel. And if this was all about just being quick and effective about it, then yeah, I would look at those animated movies again. I would probably study a ton of those drawings. And then I would look at Heinrich's drawings for hours. I mean, throughout my life, I've looked at those drawings for dozens and dozens of hours. But that's what I would do. I would just try to make a ton of notes based on their discoveries. But I don't know. I kind of feel it's cool if I just try to figure it out on my own. And that way, every single little thing that I understand, I'm going to truly understand. It's going to be my brain, my body, my sensitivity telling me,
okay, we got this. This is what's happening with the elephant's hind legs. Or, oh, this is the curvature of that backbone. Or, oh my God, there must be a huge scapula underneath because look at this shape. So I want to see if I can learn about this in a organic fashion, in a very natural way. And we're going to do it very simply. For example, today, just a very, very straightforward profile shot of an elephant walking. And I just want to start recognizing those shapes. Later on, we're going to turn these shapes in space. And then later on in the week, hopefully, we can make images that are a little more complex. And we'll see if I can start to get a firm grasp and if I can recognize how those facets manifest themselves. I'm hoping that by the end of the week, I have enough experience. I mean, very little experience. If you think about it, it's just 4 prior paintings. But my hope is that by the end of the week, I can do something from a drawing, from like a little sketch of mine. I can paint something from my head without any aids of photographs, just based on the experience that I've had throughout the week. Now, is the last painting going to be more expressive or more naturalistic? I don't know. We'll get there when we get there. But for today, a very straightforward profile pic. I want to see if I can understand the bigger shapes that make up the elephant, if I can understand the relationship between those bigger shapes, which will lead me to beginning to understand. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Beginning to understand what is essentially the proportion of an elephant. If you can start to familiarize yourself with the relationship between those bigger shapes, you're going to start to have a grasp of the sense of proportion, the relationship, the choreography between all the parts that make up the complex shape that is, in this case, an elephant. So, baby steps, very simple background, simple foreground. I would even categorize it as something a little flat, I would say. But the idea for today is just to be careful in trying to identify those shapes, but also we can't forget the fact that we're painting. So I have to try and do it, and this is going to be true for every single day of the week, in a very bold manner. It is very important for me to convince myself that even though this is something that I don't understand and that I don't know about, because, needless to say, I've never painted an elephant in my life. I think I've drawn an elephant a couple of times in my life, just while playing Pictionary, maybe. So it was probably a very abstract idea of an elephant, but I've never painted an elephant before. So it's very, very exciting. I also wish I had Samus. I think I talked about them before. He had these, when he was little. So we're talking about, 10 years ago. But he had these Schleich and Papo animals that were so, so good. So those could be amazing references. Those could clear a ton of things up. But in reality, what I'm going to do is something very, very simple. I'm going to look at a bunch of pictures in the internet. I'm going to then hone in on one of those references. And I'm going to paint that. And I'm going to try to see if I can start to have access to all that information that lies within, this idea of elephant. So, like I said, baby steps. And maybe I'm going to have to restate the final objective of this week. Maybe tomorrow I have to reestablish what I want to do in the final day during this week, because maybe, this is beyond my grasp, and maybe I'm going to realize that this is far more difficult than what I had anticipated. But we'll see. I'm going to give it my best. I'm going to try to make it a little bit more complex for me as the days go by. But still, things have to be basic. Things have to be very, very basic, very fundamental in order for me to understand them. So that's the plan for this study week. We're going to just concentrate on an elephant because it is a wonder of nature. If we're going to look at something, what better place to start than with an elephant? So that's going to be it for today. Very glad to be back. Hand feels fine. Wrist feels fine. So very happy about those things. So we're going to give it our all this week, and we'll see how we do. Once again, thank you guys for the nice comments. We'll see you tomorrow. Remember, tomorrow, Spanish Tuesdays, Martes Español, where we're going to refer to elephant as elefante. That's a tough one. So brush up on your Spanish. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.